Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 128 of the Anime on Draft podcast. I'm your host this week, Rolando, joined by the ever distant Mark over there in the back.
Hi.
There he is. There he is.
Plus Ultra Alec.
Plus Ultra.
And the looks like he's next to a Target bag, Drew.
Yeah, there's one literally behind me. It's right there.
You know, just noticed the little Christmas village in the back?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Right
I
over
love
your
that.
left shoulder.
Yeah.
Right
So
under
we
the
got
jasmine.
Christmas Village. Yeah.
That's nostalgia.
There's a lot
right
going
there.
on back there.
Yeah.
You can't see anymore though. It's illegal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
It's copyrighted.
Ooh.
So this week we have 3 beers. We all have different beers, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the theme
Not
is
all, but-
sours.
Ours is
So-
a saison.
Okay, it's a
a
sour
farmhouse.
farmhouse.
Saison. I'm glad I'm not drinking the saison.
So since you have your bottle still up, Alec, what saison do you have?
So it's the Brewer's Bridge. It is a collaboration between DuPont and Allagash.
Oh,
Yeah. Saison. So it's called
That
the
sounds-
Brewer's Bridge.
that sounds good.
Yeah,
So
it's
they're-
11.2 full ounces and 6.1%.
Okay, I thought you were going to say
11.2%.
11.2%.
Yeah,
I was
I
like, whoa.
No, I read 11.2 and I wasn't sure if it was going to be the percent or not.
He just wanted to say
Mark's like
full
holding his
ounces.
bottle back there. He's like, wait, what? I
I
don't
was like-
remember agreeing to this.
I'm
Hold
trying to
up.
read this because it's really hard to read. And then I was like, whoa, wait, what the? Yeah, no, honestly, I can't read any of this.
Nobody can.
Drew, what
It's
what
like
do you have?
Super shiny.
I have the Tiki Sunset Sour from Coronado Brewing. It is a kettle sour ale with toasted coconut, pineapple, macadamia nut, lactose, and other added flavors.
Other added flavors. What are those other added flavors?
Who knows? But it is part of their art series, which is they're taking can art from artists around San Diego. So this guy is
That's cool.
at a sunset or something.
Seems
Oh.
like a very
Pretty.
San Diego picture.
Yeah.
It
Pretty
is
much
very
every night.
San Diego.
I have the Heist Brewco Hips Don't Lychee. So this is another beer from the UK.
That's where the name
That
of this
might be expired.
episode came from.
It could possibly be expired. It
Could
says best
possibly be
before
bad.
July 1st, 2020. I had to remember to read this in a European date time format. But it also says store below 5 degrees Celsius, and I definitely didn't do
Oops.
that.
Did not.
So, unless you assume that my room is below around 30-something degrees Fahrenheit, that's not.
Which it's not.
It's like a nice, chill, comfortable,
nice,
Yeah.
comfortable 30.
25 degrees.
Yeah.
Oops.
That might explain why when I poured this out, there was no head.
Just completely flat.
Yeah.
No, there was carbonation, but there was no head. So we'll find out if I'm going to continue to drink this or if it's bad.
Well, hopefully it's
Gonna
not
taste
bad.
stale.
It's got a hell of a name, I'll give it that.
Well, anyways, while we get into these beers, let's move into our weekly pairing. And once again, we have got B-Stars. This week we've got episode 9. There is a lot to talk about with this. Drew, I remember you mentioned the other day, wow, why is B-Stars so good? I hadn't seen the episode yet, and then I watched it. I was like, yeah, wow.
It's
What?
godlike.
What is with this
It-
show?
There's so much going on and so much that got introduced this episode. It's you kind of get an insight into this world a little bit more, which is pretty cool. There's some shady underdealings that we kind of talked about last week in terms of who runs the black market and stuff. We have the mayor going in and making shady deals and talking with Louis and telling him basically to hey, if you want your future to be as bright as everyone thinks it is, just chill out. And then
Relax,
well,
bitch.
we got I almost said Lucchese, which is a pitcher for the Padres. Lugosi we got him confessing to Haru, and then last but not least, we got Haru getting kidnapped. So there's a lot of shit going on this week.
Yeah, so many things. So it it's kind of a stereotypical plot when it comes to these types of, I guess, love triangle, like drama conflicts. The main girl gets kidnapped, in this case by the Shishigumi,
The Shitsungumi.
which the Shishigumi is sort of like a yakuza type group in their world, and Shishi actually comes from like the kanji for lion, so like Shishi is a word for lion, and then Gumi is just like Kai is like another
Pokemon.
way of referring to like a specific group. Like we have the Hasaikai in My Hero Academia. They're like a sort of like yakuza-ish type group. Those are just like suffixes that denote like a group or a syndicate, usually tied to like yakuza. So I kind of put a few things down in here. I don't know if anybody else like looked through or added like to these points, but there are things that they introduce in this episode. Mostly it's Louis and the number 4. So 4 is generally considered an unlucky number in Japan because it can have the reading shi, which means death, and we see this like throughout the episode. We've got the Shishigumi, like the lions. Louis himself, he's a deer. The word for deer is shika, and yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, how do you think Louis' past and like how he's like the unlucky 4? Like, how do you think this plays into his character now, and like how his character is going to develop as the series goes on?
He died.
And obviously, like,
I mean, that's a valid point.
it's and kind of going off of that a little bit. It's like he's kind of working his way up to being like that martyr character, but it's like, what is he martyring for? Is it like for this idea that carnivores and herbivores should be like living together? So I can kind of see it that way. But he's also like this like super like, I kind of figured that his backstory would be a little bit dark, but to like this extent, I don't know if I was expecting that, kind of being raised to essentially be food for carnivores. It was kind of like shocking. It's like I knew it was going to be like something along those lines, but it was like to see that finally and like the way that it was portrayed was definitely like kind of a like they just like threw it at you and you're just like, wow. It kind of makes sense why you act the way that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Louis' character is just so interesting because we've been getting glimpses of like all this like death imagery in previous episodes, especially with the play too, and I know we talked about this before, but like the way that the play played out, but just like the plot of the play itself it is very just symbolic of Louis' character almost. And also Legosi too. They I feel like they keep kind of switching between like the main hero that's in the play, like as well as the main hero in this show. And so yeah, like this image of like death has just continually been popping up in the previous episodes. And then now that we finally get to see Louis' past, you start seeing that like he's had all of these really, really deep-seated issues.
That's interesting that you bring the play up, because if you look at like what plays out between Louis and Lugosi in this episode, Louis is once again playing the character that is kind of the middle ground. He's the one that's trying to be the reason, like the savior.
Yeah.
Whether that is well intentioned or not, but Lugosi is still being that like fighting his own, using his own passion, his own drive.
Yeah. In this episodes too, the guy who saves Louis also says like you have a very strong sense of justice, which is very in true with his character now. But now his sense of justice is being so skewed by society and like how he wants to change things, but still thinks that the ends justify the means or will justify the means. Whereas Lugosi now is just so passionate about what he thinks is right, and like his sense of justice may not be, you know, on as on point as Louis because it's mainly driven by his love for Haru, but it's still like a valid motivation for himself or for his character.
Yep.
And the thing I was kind of thinking from your point, he has all this death around him, and I jokingly said he may die, but I don't think he'll be the one that dies. It just seems he's constantly surrounded by death. So maybe we see somebody else. I don't think Haru is gonna die in this situation because that would be a little. It just feels too fast. Or maybe they'll have some development where it doesn't feel forced. But when he was in the black market livestock, people were dying, and then he was thrown into that thing where it was like kill them, and he was saying he'd kill himself instead. So it just seems like they're gonna keep surrounding him with death. So I don't know. Don't hitch your wagon to that guy.
It could be a symbolic death of his character
could
and
be.
his sense of
Oh.
justice.
So,
That's
Just
what
like
I'm saying.
his
He's
star.
like,
It's like the-
that's what I'm saying. He's like, his character is being like worked up to be this like martyr character.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So-
totally see that. I feel like he could very easily play the martyr in society. I mean, even with the mayor making this super shady backhand deal, like he's almost
All to
using,
save face.
Yeah.
Right, he's almost using Louis too, just to make him seem like he's giving a bone to the herbivores of society. I don't know.
It is interesting if you look at that sort of deal that they make, because in a sense you can sort of see the reasoning behind it. Like,
totally.
just because there's one underground group of these lions that are causing havoc behind the scenes doesn't mean that you need to bring the whole state into panic. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's sort of the type of reasoning of like, you don't negotiate with terrorists kind of deal. It's like you don't want to let terrorism sort of like rule and
you don't wanna
cause fear through your
incite
state.
fear.
You don't want to incite fear. So like, you can sort of see a little bit where the mayor is coming from and why Louis ultimately accepts it, even though you can see he's struggling with his own emotions.
The mayor's way of
on that.
phrasing it is just so like
Sketchy.
dirty.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Well,
like,
it
I
is
care
like-
about the people. It's like, I'm not gonna ruin my image of lions and myself. Okay.
Well, do you still think like the mayor is innocent in all this? Because it's like a lot of times in like these kind of situations, it's like he's put on like this front to like protect these underground groups. He's like, he even says, oh, I changed my face. I got dentures instead of my fangs now, and like and stuff like that. So it's setting up so that like he's the like good front, but he's also like protecting this underground group too. That's at least what I think.
Yeah. Definitely seems that way. Like,
I was
why else would
thinking
he
he's
mention that?
related or something to
He
one
could
of
be
them.
part of it.
Yeah, or part of it, or it's his.
He is a lion.
relative, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, that's my
They
brother."
all have a
He's
very
alive.
similar.
yeah.
They all have a very similar look.
Mhm.
Wow, what are you saying, Drew?
My
Test tube
brother.
lions.
Yeah, it's because he's always lying.
Oh,
Down on the
hey.
And
Um,
with that, we
and with
end the
that.
stream.
So, one other thing that I kind of put out in here was I had a feeling that if I looked up Louis IV, that something would come up. And so this is from Wikipedia on the death of French King Louis IV and the legend of the wolf. So at the end of the summer of 954, Louis IV went riding with his companions on the road from Laon to Rheims. As he crossed the forest of Vauas near to his palace in Corbigny, he saw a wolf and attempted to capture it. Flodoard, from whom these
Flodoard?
details are known, said that the king fell from his horse. Urgently carried to Rame, he eventually died from his injuries on the 10th of September. For the Rame canons, the wolf who the king tried to hunt wasn't an animal but a fantastic creature, a divine supernatural intervention. And then Flodoard, this is a scholar, recalled indeed that in 938 Louis IV had captured Corbeny in extreme brutality and without respecting the donations to the monks made by his father. So as in he had done all of this stuff without paying his dues to God, essentially. Thus God could punish the king and his descendants with a curse of the wolf as a plague. The later events are disturbing. According to Flodoard, Louis reportedly died from tuberculosis, then called Pesta Elephantis, and in 986 his son Lothair died by a plague after he besieged Verdun, and eventually his grandson Louis V died in 987 from injuries received when falling from a horse while hunting, a few months after he besieged Rheims for the trial of Archbishop Aldebaran. So once again, we do see there is some sort of legend with a wolf and Louis IV. An interesting thing about this is there's a role with divine intervention and God. This sort of plays a little bit into the Japanese word for wolf, okami, o meaning great,
Okami.
and kami meaning God or spirit. So I don't know, how do you guys think this specific tidbit with Louis IV and the legend of the wolf, do you think that this somehow is going to play into this sort of relationship that's developing between Lugosi and Louis?
Well, it's since they've been interacting with each other, it's kind of gone downhill for Louis. It's his girl gets kidnapped, he breaks his leg, countless other things that have kind of happened. So it's it is almost it's seemingly he has cursed him by having more interaction with him, which is really interesting. I really like that tidbit. I'm glad that you were able to find that out.
Yeah, that is
Do you
really
think-
cool.
Do you
It's
think
fascinating.
Lugosi is going to be the death in your sense, the cause this martyrdom of Louis?
I mean, it would make sense, and that's where things are kind of leading. It's although before I thought it was going to be more along the lines of straight up hit, Lugosi versus Louis. Now it seems or over Haru, but now it seems like we have the third party involved, and so it's I kind of maybe see Louis siding with the Lions because he's kind of forced into that predicament, and so that's why he needs to kill him to save Haru. I kind of like the other way better, but whatever gets the job done, I guess.
What about Alec? You look like you had to say something.
I did, and then I forgot. But I feel like it might, because with Lugosi just kind of gung ho going in there to save Haru, I could see it going a couple ways. One, his sense of justice wanes and becomes more like the mayor, as opposed to the kind of just raw sense of justice that he had in the black market. Or I was kind of seeing it as the Louis we see now, who's really obsessed with his image and becoming a B-star, and kind of that part of society following what the mayor says, that part of him dies and he becomes more like Lugosi, and that's kind of what it could one
Symbolic.
way or the other. Yeah, symbolic. He goes one way or the other, but I don't know if he'll actually in this yet.
Yeah,
But he could.
I agree with the second theory you have, that I think that Lugosi and Louis will sort of be able to turn things around, and Lugosi won't necessarily be the death of Louis, or continually be this plague on Louis. I mean, who knows? Maybe Louis will die from some other extenuating circumstances or something. But I mean, I don't see it as being more of a Lugosi fault. I think from what we've seen already, yeah, I think that entirely plays in with it, that whole folktale of Louis IV. I think, yeah, Lugosi's introduction to and impact on Louis so far has been pretty shitty for Louis.
Been like a curse.
Yeah, definitely.
But then they, in that thing you read, they mention it as like a fantastic creature, a divine supernatural intervention, as opposed to like a curse or something horrible. It's phrased in a way where it seems like it will put, it may be a burden, but it'll be like putting him on the right path. It's an intervention. I don't know. I wouldn't.
Well, he died.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Didn't end
but I
great
mean,
for
like,
my-
it's up
my
for
setback.
interpretation now. Like, if we're making a show about it and they read
died and
something
his
about a
descendants died.
fantastical creature, then it totally could go a different direction. That's all I'm
It was-
saying.
It was like the familiar,
His
like-
whole family
Yeah.
was cursed.
Everybody's
they
whole
all
family
died.
dies. It always happens. It's
I think
nothing
you're thinking
new.
like the first experience was, yes, like it didn't seem that bad at the time, but
Yeah.
yeah, afterwards, yeah, everybody was like, "Oh, y'all fucking cursed." Like,
Yeah, no, they're good. Yeah, because the way they see it, he's just like, "Oh, there's a wolf. I'm gonna catch it." They're like, "We don't see no wolf."
yeah,
And then he falls off his horse and like gets hurt.
Crazy.
And they're like, "Bro, I don't know what got you shook, but like you just fell off your horse and now you're gonna die." Like,
yeah, probably not the best idea.
Oops.
he's probably cursed.
Have
he's
we
not
seen-
gonna.
have we
He's
seen
gonna
any
get
horse
led down a
people?
better path.
Horse people?
Horses in the show.
We haven't seen any Uma Musumes in there.
We
seen
haven't, huh?
horses. And we
No.
haven't seen any. Or we saw one monkey.
We saw some monkeys, yeah,
We
in this
saw one
episode.
monkey.
That was the first one.
But yeah, we
some
haven't seen
gorillas,
any.
but
any horses.
no, that was just a random thought.
They might be too busy racing. In that horse race
You know what?
anime.
Yeah,
They're
maybe.
all
Making money off their bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they're all modeling. Excuse me.
Well, the kind of last thing that kind of plays in all of this. So, do you remember when we had Karen on the episode and she brought up the whole deers tied to the whole mysticism in a lot of different cultures and religions? So in Shinto, deers are kind of seen as the messengers of the Shinto gods. So that's kind of interesting how Louis as a deer might play in this, with Lugosi kind of being seen as like this whole divine intervention, possibly like in sort of that theme. So I wonder how Louis plays into like this sort of mystical symbolism. Like, will he be a messenger of the gods, or will he die, become fawn?
Well, that's
Dead.
kind of what they said at the
He
near the
dying.
beginning of the episode, saying he has the potential to
did.
change the world, but will he actually? Probably not.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll have to find out.
He has no horns. He can't do it.
No, he has no no horns.
Yeah, they fell out. His are fake.
Oh.
Mufasa.
Yeah, yeah. So he can't do it.
All right. Well, was there anything else with this episode that you guys kind of want to touch upon?
I just thought the interaction between Haru and Lugosi was pretty funny. I was like, I just don't want to hear this because I
Yeah.
don't want to deal with that right now.
I really don't
Yeah.
want to. And then he says,
That
"I
was
can tell
funny.
you tomorrow." And she's like,
Yeah.
"That still seems really stressful."
It's kind of
You
feel
knew
bad,
she
but
do.
yeah.
She was like, "Oh no, he's gonna confess."
It's like,
Fuck.
I
No,
know where
no,
this
no,
is
no, no,
coming
no.
from. I've been
Yeah.
here before. God damn.
And then the whole scene with her and the Yakuza boss.
Oh yeah.
Pretty.
That was uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
was a
There's
little uncomfortable.
A lot of human trafficking scene in this episode. The
Yeah.
theme of that.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
All right.
Uncomfortable.
Well, I think that wraps up our coverage on Beastars episode 9. So why don't we get back into these beers? My beer is flat, so I don't think I stored this very well.
But it's not spoiled.
It's not spoiled.
That's good.
It's a
You
tasty
won't
icky.
die.
It tastes like a flat beer.
Ugh.
So you know how aeration plays a role in flavor?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting all of the notes that I'm supposed to. So I might have to self-aerate this like you would with wine.
Swish it around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not getting... I'm getting
a lot of
lychee.
flavor.
I'm not really getting any mango. Maybe a hint. I don't get
Mongol.
any oats or hops that says are in here.
I can't read
Where's
this.
where's the brewery from?
The brewery is from. It's Heist Brew Co. On Mill Street, Clown, Chesterfield.
Clown School, Chesterfield.
I'm looking at
In the UK.
Charlotte, North Carolina. That's not the one
That
we're
is
looking
not the
for.
one we're looking for.
Saw that. Too. I was like, that's doesn't sound right. It's close.
I'm trying to find it.
Well, while you look for that, how does that saison?
It's very good.
It's good, right?
It's very, very good.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's delicious, man. It's pretty it's very drinkable. It's
Mhm.
pretty mellow.
I wish my cup were a little colder before I poured it in. I think that's
Yeah.
why there was
There was a
so
lot
much
of head
foam.
on this.
There was a lot of foam.
Yeah, but it was like a nice pillowy head though. That
Mhm.
it went away
You
pretty
can kind of still
dissipated.
see it,
Yeah,
like on the side of my
Alex still
cup.
has it, yeah.
yeah,
It's like that. It's thick.
yeah. Look at the
Bring it
legs
over
on
here.
that
Yeah.
thing.
Like it's like a cloud. Look at that. So
It
Nice and
says
pillowy.
England. This is from England.
Yeah,
Inglando.
that's where I bought it.
In Inglando.
I was there.
Guess where it
That's where I was.
Yeah, this is very delicious. It's got a lot of flavor to it.
Trying to read about it.
Like little yeasty just at the end, but like it's not too sour really. It's actually quite mellow, but it just got
Mhm.
a lot of spices in it.
You get a lot of spices. It
Mhm.
does
How-
have
Some
a
clove.
farmy flavor to it. I think that
No.
might be that back end
Yeah.
that you're mentioning.
I was about to ask how it finished.
It finishes
finishes very well.
kind of with that flavor you'd expect, but it's not
Yeah.
overpowering or bad. It's pleasant for sure.
All right, so Drew's gonna hate this beer.
Yep.
I don't know.
Sounds like a beer that I hate.
Well, but it
So
also has
Rolando,
like a
I see-
bitter finish.
Yeah.
No, that's the exact flavor that you described as the flavor that Drew hates in saisons.
I just saw the
That's
bottom of your
right.
cup and I was like, is that in mine?
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
I'm
a lot of
looking at
sediment.
pictures of the beer that you have, Rolando, on Untapped. None of them have head.
Okay.
So I don't think you're missing out on that, at least.
All right. I mean, I'm just saying it says to store it at 5 degrees. I definitely
Yeah.
did not do that.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's writing on the side of this beer, but because of the color, even in person, it's like impossible to read it. So I found it on beeradvocate.com and it says, we're excited to bring you this rare beer created using time-honored Belgian brewing techniques combined with American hops and craft brewing innovation, resulting in a unique beer that highlights the best of both breweries.
Of broth.
Both breweries, yeah.
The
So
bros.
It's a collab between two of the world's best breweries, Belgium's Brasserie DuPont and America's Allagash Brewing.
I can agree with those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a
are
very
two of the
very
world's best brewers.
Allagash flavored beer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's and the head. I every time I have an Allagash beer, they're very pillowy.
yeah.
But
Reminds me
maybe
of
I
the
haven't
white.
ventured out too much.
The Allagash white,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
just a little bit more of a spiciness to it.
Yeah, that because that one has a lot of like, is it clove or
I like white
coriander.
sweet.
coriander? Thank
Coriander.
you, coriander. Yeah, this one's more like, I don't know. It's just that kind of like it has a Belgian.
This is clove. Like
Belgian flavor.
yeah,
It's good. It's good. That's all I can say.
yeah, it is very good.
Yeah, and it's.
It sounds good.
I mean,
yeah.
in terms of the drink, it feels like it would go really well with food because it washes your palate.
Mhm.
It's really carbonated, refreshing. But with spicy food, it might still have some kick because of the bitterness. with it.
Spicy.
Spicy, but good, real good.
All right, Drew. Now that you're done looking up the Heist Brewery, why don't you give us a little talk about your Coronado beer?
Yeah, so this I guess was inspired by a tiki
Put
drink
it
called the Chi. So that's where you get like coconut, pineapple, macadamia nut, and then they added like lactose to kind of like smooth it all together. I don't know, like it's decent. I can definitely taste it's like super pineapple-y. I don't really get coconut. I don't really get macadamia nut, and you get like the smoothness from the lactose. But other than that, like very subtle pineapple. Like I said, it just tastes sour. That's
Well,
just kind of what it tastes
it's a
like.
sour,
and
right?
It is a sour, but it's like sour is the predominant flavor, and it's not any of the other things that sounded good when I was looking this up.
Like
or when I
sour as in like
chose it.
acidic, sour as in tart, sour as in like what?
Tartly acidic, I guess I would say. Like you get the sour and like the in your jowls
Here?
back
Yeah.
here. Yeah, that's like the only like thing that I can experience. Like once I'm like beginning to swallow, it's just like that overwhelms my entire mouth, and it's just like kind of unpleasant. And then it's like you drool a lot to like try to get the flavor out. So it's like my mouth is like full of drool. It's like
Nice.
I don't know.
That sounds
The way
pleasant.
you're describing
It's
that
not-
sounds disgusting.
Sounds
Yeah,
like you
but I
had
know
like
what
a
you
really
mean, yeah.
bad reaction in your mouth. You're just
It's like when you have a warhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It tastes like that artificial, like sour candy flavor. That's like the aftertaste that this leaves with you. It's okay. I'll drink it. I've been sipping on it about halfway down now. It's like
Nice cup.
it's just like it's like super one notey, and that one note is that icky
It's
sour
Microsoft.
flavor.
sourness.
That's I don't know. I don't know if I would want to drink a sour that has notes of coconut and macadamia nut.
Yeah. You don't even taste them. Like I get none of the earthy because I like macadamia nuts. You get none of the earthiness from that. It just tastes like fermented pineapple, like that has gone sour. That's what this tastes like.
So soured pineapple juice that's
Hmm.
been sitting out with yeast in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
The
Yummy.
It's smooth. That's like the only thing I'll give it. It's like very smooth.
I do have to I have to agree that brewing a sour with like coconut and macadamia can get very risky because I think that you have a very easy chance of making it just way too like puckery. I don't know. 'Cause-
Earthy.
Yeah, earthy
yeah.
too. The Terps
coconuts.
and Caicos that I had from Alvarado Street Brewery. I don't remember if you guys tried that, but that was brewed. It was like a Mai Tai style, so it was brewed with pineapple and coconut, and it was almost hitting that just way too sour, earthy. I don't know. I mean, it was good. It was pretty like mellow, but it was definitely very very sour.
I don't like coconut.
This
in beers.
needs.
It's too much or too little.
So,
You don't
like,
taste it or it
This
tastes
is.
artificial. Ugh.
This is based on like a tiki drink, right? So most tiki drinks have rum, and rum has a lot of sugar in it generally. That's what this needs. It needs like sugar, and that's like what
spice.
makes. Yeah, that's like what
Make
makes
it a
tiki drinks good.
lactose
It's not
sour.
just like the one note of like sour juice. You want like a little bit of sugar, a little bit of spice, and this has neither.
A
And
lactose
everything
sour,
nice.
Alec.
Yeah, lactose sour.
They someone go make a Yakult sour ale.
A sour
Well, this
milk
is
Hey, wait a
shake.
minute.
It's a lactose
You may be
sour.
onto something.
Someone-
here.
It's a
I
milkshake
bet you
sour.
they probably have one of those in
It's
Asia,
gotta-
right?
it's
Oh,
gotta
there's
be.
got to be one.
Yeah, strong.
milkshake
strong
sour
Yakult.
sounds
They've
pretty
got
good.
they've got what durian whiskey over in Singapore or something like that.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Sounds
pass.
miserable. A hard pass.
Oh man.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll try it. I'll try it once.
No, let's get that Yakult beer going.
So we've been
Someone-
talking about trying to brew a beer for a long time. Should our first beer be a Yakult sour?
No, definitely shouldn't
No.
experiment
Go
on the
immediately
first
to
ever
expert
beer.
level.
That sounds like it's
No.
gonna go bad
Yeah,
very
right.
easily.
We need to find
Watch, it's like a
a
huge
good
hit.
brewery that we trust. And be like, hey, why don't you try a Yakult style beer? Just like a yogurty,
Probiotic.
probiotic.
There's a
Good for
blog
your
here,
belly.
the sour beer blog, fast souring with lactobacillus. I mean, it's here. Do
Yeah.
it.
It's like kombucha. They
No,
have the hard
Siri, I don't
kombucha.
wanna
do
Sorry,
the same
Siri.
thing.
I did not.
Hard
say-
kombucha,
It's
depending
here.
like Boochcraft is
Yeah.
it Boochcraft? Yeah,
Good. Yeah.
that was pretty good.
Look at this picture.
We had a couple of those on the program a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's sketchy.
Well-
that's I wouldn't go in there for any hug.
I would say this beer is basically just juice. It's not even that sour. I don't know if there's something wrong with my taste buds or something, but it doesn't taste.
Good.
No, it doesn't taste bad. It just doesn't really taste like what I
Taste.
expected it to be. It's an imperial sour, so it is 7.5%,
Nice.
but
Have fun.
it is a very predominant lychee flavor. I do somewhat get some of that farmhouse after finish at the end, but it honestly just tastes like kern juice.
It's a
So-
crime to drink.
I mean, it's very easy to drink. You get
Right.
the very slight hint of hops at the end.
I'm curious
ever
what it
so
would have been
subtle.
like if you just kept it.
If
at
I
5
stored it
degrees.
properly.
Yeah. So now,
Yeah,
but
I would
it's
be
gonna be
curious as
really
well.
hard for us to figure that out, seeing as how
Yeah,
we live
seeing
very
how-
far from
We
England.
can't go back in time, damn.
Yeah, we
No.
can't just go back and get.
I can't go
another.
back and store
we
this
can
at 5
turn
degrees for the next 3 months.
One of my coworkers is going to London in a couple months. I will be
All
like,
right.
can you please buy?
Tell them to buy
couple of these.
the hips don't lychee.
Yeah, take a picture.
No, just
of
drink it
send
over there.
Store it at 5 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, send it.
Send it.
Send one
in
over.
5 degrees Celsius.
Put it in one of
Yeah,
those like
Jesus.
dry ice containers or something.
That's my carry-on.
Well,
It's
I'm
smoky.
gonna.
I can turn
I'll
back
start us off with the rating. I don't know if this beer would be any different, but I'm still gonna give it like a 3.25. It's not what I'm looking for in a sour,
Based
but
off of
it is
how it is
strong
right
and it's
now.
easy to drink.
There
Okay.
you go. So if you're trying to drink something that's easy to drink and has an effect,
Yeah.
there it is.
Then do
If
that.
and you live in the UK
Yeah, if
And
you're
you live
in the UK.
yeah.
and
I
wherever
think
they
we have
distribute.
UK listeners, right?
We speak English. We just
We
speak
do.
an English that's very wrong sounding to them.
Yeah, it's just very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Drew, your tiki beer, how does that stack up?
It sounded interesting, like even for me who like doesn't buy sours, but it disappointed for me. I'm gonna give it a 1.75. I don't like just drinking something one notey and sour and have it be icky. It's icky.
All right.
Icky.
Icky.
Let's go with Alec first.
Okay. I really enjoy this beer. It has a little more bitterness than I expected. But I like it. And I think it's very, very good. It smells like a saison. It tastes like a saison, but it has a little different aspects to it, I think, because of their kind of collaboration, trying different stuff. But it's really easy to drink. It tastes very good. I would have this with food or just sitting, and I would buy it again. I don't know if this will affect your rating, Mark, but it's a 4-pack and it's $16. 17.
That's not like terribly
Yeah,
bad.
it's not like $30, but
No.
you know.
I mean that's seems
That-
like it's pretty average, especially for
For an
collaboration
Allagash,
and
yeah.
an Allagash, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean
especially
DuPont's pretty well done
collab.
too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you
So-
can get saison DuPont for fairly cheap,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
like a reasonable price.
Mm-hmm. But I think my rating, because I'll definitely buy it again whenever I see it. Probably like a 4. My gut was saying
8,
4.75, so I'll go 4.75.
No,
I
Alright.
really
4,
like
8.
this beer.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to try that beer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you should really try this.
I don't want to finish it because I can't get up and get another. It's way too hard to get out.
It's way over there.
Yeah.
Drew- I think Drew just got another beer. So
No, I gave the rest
Oh,
of mine.
you
to
gave the rest of his all right, Mark. What's your rating?
That's great. He's like, "Hey,
I'm out.
ratings done.
I'm
Here,
done.
here you
I'm
go."
done.
This is yours. I don't want
I
it.
said I
That's-
bequeath this unto you because it's
That's
icky.
great.
Those are my exact words.
Um, there you go.
That's right.
I am gonna give this a 4.75 too. This is really good, man.
It
This
is.
is a good
It is
pick.
really good.
It's very, very tasty.
Honestly,
Got a
I was
lot of
wandering
flavor to it.
around looking for a sour, and then I saw Alec. I was like walking through,
Yeah.
and I saw that out of the corner of my eye. I was like, "Hang on a second," and walked over. I was like,
Is that
"Alec
the
has
one?
DuPont collab," and just left.
That's the
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
That is the one. This is good.
Collabs.
It's a good collab. I mean, I think it's tasty beverage. It's very good. Definitely worth trying.
Gets the tasty approval as a tasty beverage.
Gets the tasty approval.
Tasty approval. All right.
Stamped.
Okay, hand.
Stamped with the tasty approval.
The tasty stamp. All right. Well,
We get like
yeah.
It says tasty.
oh,
I need to get like that
Tasty is
very
an
like
anime
big
like
stamp sounding sound effect that I can just hit when he's like the tasty stamp of approval.
I'll make a graphic.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we can get a sound and a graphic, I can put it
Yeah.
on my stream deck, and it can go.
That's gonna be really scary. Be like, yeah, it gets the
It's gonna
tasty
scare
stamp.
listeners.
People driving in the car like, oh god.
Yeah, it's like whenever you hear police sirens in like radio ads
Yeah,
and
you
you're
start
driving,
looking
you're like,
around.
what?
Where?
Where is
Where
it?
Or I hear honking on the
That
radio.
should be
And it's like,
illegal.
meh, meh. I'm like,
Yeah,
who's honking?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Um,
Gonna get me in an accident.
we need to get that abolished. Be like,
Yeah,
all right,
honestly.
we gotta stamp down on those regulations. So, moving on, let's go to our news break. We do have a few beer topics on here. So, first we have it's a sort of elegy on like the red ale / amber ale, and it's kind of fall from grace in the craft brew scene.
Oh,
So
yeah,
there's
I
an
was reading that.
there's this article from Paste, and they kind of talk about how the amber / red ale was kind of the poster child for the craft brew scene before the whole IPA craze happened. And if you think of like New Belgium and Fat Tire, like Fat Tire is an amber ale, and it's like a pretty iconic ale.
One
It's
of the
probably
first
one of-
craft beers I ever had.
Exactly. One of the first craft beers I had too. So, for a lot of older, I guess beer drinkers, people older than us, like when we started, like becoming of age to drink, it was when the IPA craze started happening. So, a lot of like older craft brew drinkers, enjoyers, I guess you could say, grew up kind of enjoying amber ales, and this article starts to say like it's a very easy style, it's very balanced and very subtle, but everything now has kind of shifted towards just punching you in the face, extreme
Septuple hopped.
yeah,
dry
you
hopped,
know, like during the
blah, blah.
the bitterness craze of IPAs, how bitter could you get it?
Mm-hmm.
How much bitterness could you pack into a glass? Now with the juicy hazy IPA phase, it's like how many flavors could you put into this beer?
And I've
So-
been reading a lot of articles that like our tongues aren't even equipped to taste this bitter of a bitter thing or discern this many flavors without tons of training. So like you have these people who can taste XYZ, JXW, PQ, R, and we're like, I get A, B, C. Where are the other 9?
You can get the rest of the alphabet in there.
Yeah.
So have you guys taken a look at this article?
Yeah. I read it the other day.
Yeah, Sam.
I just forgot to put it in here.
You
So I'm
want
glad
to
you did.
post the link in chat, Alec?
Yeah.
I got it.
You got it? Okay, good.
I
'cause
thought this is a great article because it really makes me think, because I'm a big fan of amber ales. Like I love Anderson Valley just because they have their the Boont amber ale is like one of my favorites. Like Moose Drool amber ale, and then there's the Get Up Off of the like brown.
Get
Like,
up off the brow.
yeah, like there's just so many like amber ales that I really enjoy, but after I started reading this article, it made me think like, yeah, that's just not a style that you see that
You don't
often
see anymore.
You see it far and few between.
Yeah,
Well, you get what they say is like the Imperial Red Ale,
sure.
or like you get these very hop infused red ales that are less towards subtlety and
Yeah.
more towards the extreme.
And it's also moving towards this like more maltiness. It's like, okay, well, like we already have our 10 different selection of IPAs. Let's just throw some let's make an Irish red, or let's make a red ale and get some different kind of malty flavors in there. Just kind of switch it up, but still having this like very like bready malty flavor in an amber ale, or even like some of that honey flavor. It's not that apparent anymore. At least I don't see it that often. I feel like it's one of the drinks that I usually try it. Like when I go to a brewery, I'm like, oh, let me try the amber.
Let me try the
Try the
and
amber.
see how it
Yeah.
goes.
If they have one.
Yeah.
If they have one.
My
yeah.
And if they do, it might just have a lot of hops in it.
When I read this, because we did kind of as a group, our dive into craft beer started, like you were saying, at the start of the IPA craze and all of that. And as someone who doesn't necessarily enjoy IPAs all that much, like doubles, triples, I can enjoy like a milkshake or a hazy, and more of the subdued, regular IPAs. It makes me wonder how much of the other types of styles have I missed out on at breweries and things like that. Like how many red ales have I missed out on, or good stouts and different styles, brown ales, and that they just don't make as much of it anymore. Like these really good breweries, I'd love to go there and try what they could come up with and be like, wow, that's really good. As opposed, like, I've had Fat Tire. It's not my most favorite beer, but I'd like better, like a better amber. But
I think my
makes me
favorite
sad.
part of this whole article is they pull up somebody's untapped rating for a Treehouse Brewing Company. It says, better than most beers I've tried in this deplorable style. Light floral note up front to balance the expected flavor profile.
Expected.
So it's like...
What's expected? Just malt?
I guess. But I just thought that was pretty funny because it's like... why are you drinking it if it's already like deplorable to you? And then it goes on to talk about, you know, a lot of these amber style ales are from like these older breweries, and I can think of a lot of them in like the Pacific Northwest, because that's where I turned 21 and that's when I started, you know, drinking craft beer. A lot of them hail from up there. You know, you got Deschutes also in Colorado. They have a nice amber. I think does BJ's have an amber ale? I know they're like a big chain now,
BJ's
but I
has
think they have,
everything,
like,
honestly.
all
yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
I know they have a red ale,
I know
like
the
the
red's pretty
Jeremiah
good.
Red, which is pretty good. Yeah, the
Mhm.
Jeremiah Red's really good. I think they have an amber style too, but it's just like it's that old iconic style that just has kind of disappeared. It's kind of sad because it's like a good,
Mhm.
refreshing beer to drink.
It is.
I've found myself going back to a lot of these pilsners lately, and we talked about, you know, a couple weeks ago, I think we had one here. But also it's like maybe I should go back and try some ambers too, because it's not one that I think about often, but they're, you know, usually pretty consistent and pretty good, better than the sour. My mouth is like still recovering from the sour.
I mean,
That's-
ambers are very beginner friendly beers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I've been craving. I think the past few weeks I've been saying I really want something that's just bready, like bready, and not the typical flavors that we get. Like I don't even want the roasty toasty stout that I normally like. I want bready or Belgian or something. I don't want a whole ton of hops. I don't want bitter. I want that bready malty flavor. That
Go get a red ale.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love red ales, man. We need
Does
more of these other ones.
Hachino's, do they have an amber ale?
Who?
Hachino's Nest?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe.
I know they have a red rice ale.
What's Allagash? Allagash amber.
But yeah, I think we should go and see if we could find any amber or red ales and
Yeah,
have
they
them
have
on
an
the
amber-
show.
I know
have an amber ale.
Coronado makes probably one of my favorite red ales. That's the Mermaid Red.
Should we do a month of red ales or a month of amber ales?
I don't know if we
Oh,
can.
Only.
find that
don't know.
many.
4 weeks.
I don't know if there's enough to have a full month,
I mean,
but
Bell's is another really
Bell's
good
is
that
one
I
of the
enjoy.
more well-known red ales, amber ales.
Mm-hmm. Anderson Valley is probably I think that's probably my favorite amber.
Trying to find.
Especially for someone who's known for like the Goes style, Anderson Valley. That's what
Recently,
I
yeah.
think about.
Yeah, their Boont Valley is good.
Amber ales.
All right.
Let's see.
Well, moving on to
Amber Isle.
another paste
Boont?
article.
That's the one you mentioned?
So
Boont?
Ballast Point has been sold again.
Oh,
So
nice.
a
To
couple
who
of
this
weeks
time?
ago, they were sold to the investors behind the Kings and Convicts Brewing Company based in Chicago, Illinois. And so if you want to link this article in chat, so
This one I don't
this
have.
other paste article,
Hold
it's
on.
in the script.
Yeah, I got it.
so
a big fan of
they do
haste.
bring up this. Oh,
Oh,
my
you're
camera
gone.
turned
Oh,
off.
Bye, bud.
Well, my camera is on. That's interesting.
It's like my monitor.
You've been timed out.
It's like my monitor
Uh,
just keeps shutting off.
wait,
Yeah, it's been
let me
pretty good.
just
There
It's a
you
good
go.
day
Is
for
re-
technical
just
stuff.
toggle the switch on Skype.
Yeah.
So the Pace article brings up this question: is like, are they a craft brewery again? Because they're not owned by Constellation, so they're not owned by a beer conglomerate anymore. They're owned by a smaller set of investors. So are they a craft brewery again? And so they kind
was
of bring up
talking-
this idea. They pull up a bunch of different breweries that have been bought out, and like are they classified? Can you classify them as a craft brewery or not craft brewery?
I was talking to a coworker about Ballast because there's like going to be like a happy hour there or whatever, and we're both like, do we like even like Ballast anymore? Because like I don't know, their beers like they try new stuff, but all
You're
the new
gone,
stuff that I've tried
Rolando.
isn't very good.
I don't know what's wrong with Skype. I just have to hit the button a few times and then it'll just go back.
But I don't know. It's like I feel like they haven't released like a good like iconic beer in a long time, and I can definitely say that about like other San Diego breweries. So I don't know if it's like they just got too complacent or the process changed or something, but I don't know. It feels like they grew too big too fast, and now their beer just isn't like. Would I rather have a Sculpin or would I rather have a Windy Hill or something like that? It's like I'm gonna go with McKellar or Windy Hill every time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
I
think
don't know.
I think what makes sense to me is that yes, they grew so big so fast that they then had like their main beers out there and you could find them everywhere, and it was like Sculpin, Victory at Sea, whatever
The other ones.
Sea Rose, whatever, and then the other one,
I don't like
whatever,
Sea
and then
Watermelon Dorado.
and then
Oh,
they just
God,
have
I fucking hate that beer.
they just have like this list of beers that
many
you can just
failures.
find anywhere, and now it's like that's what people are knowing and attributing Ballast Point as. It's like if you go into their brewery, I'm sure you could try some different styles, but most of those different styles are different takes on those
Yeah.
Pineapple
those main
Sculpin.
brews.
Like
Right.
85 different types of Sculpin.
Yeah. you
What's
could
the
have different
fastest
barrel
way you
aged
can-
styles
Victory
of
at
the
Seas.
Victory at
If you
Sea.
just produce this many barrels of this type of beer, how many flavor infusions can we put and just stick a new label on it?
Yeah, and I think for them to try to break away from that mold that they've already set themselves in, I don't know if they can. I feel like they just need to come out with something that, yes, it will label, like relabel them as like, oh, this is a really good beer. Like, oh, now I wish I could find this everywhere as well. Maybe that's what
Well-
they need to do, is come out with something that's really good and only have it in San Diego.
Yeah.
Ironically,
They should have done that with
af-
more of their infusions.
after
If only they were good.
after Constellation bought Ballast a few years ago, they started to reduce production. Like Constellation reduced the amount of beer they were producing. So
Good.
I don't know. It is interesting. If you look at the breweries they kind of cover, they try and classify them as craft brewery or not based on their buyout, like who bought them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty interesting. I don't know.
I think
Take a read.
I just wish that Ballast Point, they came up with so many infused beers. Instead of making them readily available everywhere in so many stores, make it just you can get it here. And then when people respond favorably to it, you put it into stores. But they just made it and then put it in stores. And then you get failures like the watermelon and others.
What I see myself doing lately is comparing like Ballast and Stone, and I think Stone's starting to like break out of
Yeah.
the mold of like craft beer, just like super heavy like West Coast IPAs.
Yeah.
Now they're breaking into a bunch of different styles. They have like a Mexican
Took
style
'em long
beer. They
enough.
have Vietnamese.
I think
They have like
they're
a bunch of stouts, and they're all interesting flavors. Whereas like Ballast, it's just more of the same, and I don't want to drink their beer anymore.
yeah. What's interesting is about Stone is that I read an article saying that their sell-by date beers were some of their most popular and like most demanded beers, and I think
Mm-hmm.
from that it was like, oh, okay, well, we have this limited supply of these beers, and people are keep asking about it, so why don't we continually make these like small batches and get them out there?
Yeah.
Because people are gonna ask about it, and people want to try like some of these different whatever styles. Like, I mean, most of them are good because they're like
Yeah.
letting their main brewers just make a small batch of something, and
Yeah.
it's like these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, when
Generally,
they're just,
like really fresh IPAs.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, when they're just making large batches of stuff, they don't get to really kind of experiment that much. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you keep your brewers happy?
Happy brewers
them-
make happy
let them
brewers.
Happy brewers
experiment.
make happy beers.
Otherwise, they go somewhere else and they go, "Ooh, I can experiment."
Happy
Let's do
brewers
this."
make happy brews.
California.
Yes.
Happy hops.
All right. Well, moving on into our anime news. So, Sakura So no Pet Nakanojo had its 10th anniversary celebrated by its illustrator, Keiji Mizoguchi, with a new illustration. You can pull that up, Alec, if you want. So, the light novel series was a
can
collaboration by Mizoguchi and Hajime Kamoshida. The two most recently paired up for the Seishun Butayoro series that spawned the Bunny Girl Senpai anime series and the Dreaming Girl movie that released earlier this year. So, congrats to Sakura So. That was a good anime series if I remember it
Yeah.
correctly.
It is.
So, moving on. Doraemon is going to receive its own film festival in February of 2020. So, this is pulled from Anime News Network. The popular children's anime Doraemon will get a film festival all to itself in February next year. From February 1 to March 5, Shogakukan's Jimbocho Theater will screen all 39 Doraemon films, plus 14 short films / specials that were initially screened alongside the feature films. All films that were released before 2010 will be screened with 35mm film. Oh, that's going to be a little dangerous, especially if the projector booth doesn't know how to
handle 35
handle film.
There we go.
You could get some burnt film on there. All right. Well, more details will be released on Jimbocho Theater's website at a later date.
I have the picture you were talking about. Just got it. Up.
For Sakura So? Okay.
Yeah, it's up there now. It's cool.
Cool.
It's gone.
All right. So, Japanese publisher Kodansha plans to open a new venue in Ikebukuro aimed at live content to supplement series and other ventures it has with its various partners, such as King Records, Bushiroad, and TV Tokyo. Highlighting the venture will be King Records' Club Mixa, which will be a live music venue and bar, as well as Kodansha's Hall Mixa, which will house press conferences, talk shows, and VR theatrical plays for its many franchises. The site will be a remodel of the recently closed Cinema Sunshine Ikebukuro Theater. The venue is slated to open March 19th, 2020. So this is going to be, I believe, on Sunshine Street, which
Nice.
where we hung out over there.
Yeah,
when we were over
Ikebukuro
there.
is cool. It's a cool
I like
spot. I liked it.
Ikebukuro, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you get a chance, go swing by there and hang out.
All right, so Friday, December 6th marks the date
What?
where the final
Marks it?
set of relief funds from Sentai Filmworks GoFundMe for the KyoAni arson attacks has been officially transferred to KyoAni.
Awesome.
And
Nice.
the total that the campaign raised in US dollars was $2,367,030.
Nice. And
Wow.
16 cents.
Did it say 16 cents in the
No.
article, or are you just adding that?
I'm just
Okay.
saying that.
I'm like, who donated 16 cents? Who are you?
Someone did
Um,
$1.60. It's all I had.
Uh, so there's a new ad from Nissan Cup Noodle. It's their latest in their One Piece anime ads.
Play it.
This one titled Hungry Days. If you want to play it, go ahead, Alec, or you can link it in chat. But I put the rough translation down there for Mark and Drew since they love One Piece.
I like the second line on here, and it just says, eh.
They do that though. They do that.
私転校するんだ
If you're, oh, are you playing it?
Yeah.
All right.
みんなと初めて会った時からいろんなことがあったねこの二度と戻らない日々が私の青春でしたいつかまた会えたらもう一度仲間って呼んでくれるかな
Oh, I knew it.
ハングリーデイズカップヌードル
All right.
Yeah, that was good. I would totally watch a full series of that.
Of One Piece characters in high school.
Hell yeah. I mean, look at the animation in that, too. It's
a really-
amazing.
It was really
It
good.
reminds me of Attack on Titan High School. Did you guys watch that?
I watched the
Or
first
Attack on
episode
Titan Middle School or whatever.
and
It's
I
like
stopped
so.
watching it.
It's
Yeah.
like so bad.
It's really bad.
I like. I think it would be like cool, like one episode of this, Mark, but it's like
Yeah.
a whole show.
You're probably
Uh,
right.
Oh, and you know what? You know what they would do too, because it's what they did on Attack on Titan Middle School or whatever. They just like overblow like all the community. Like
it would
memes
be
and
super
stuff.
campy.
It would just be like, oh, Zoro always gets lost, and now he's getting
Yeah.
lost again, except he's in high school. It's like, oh, you know, Frankie is crazy and likes to pose and do stupid shit, and like Usopp's an idiot. You know, it would just be like everything like overblown. It would be funny for like an episode, but I think that's it.
Yeah, you know.
The
you
novelty
might be
would wear
right.
off.
Eh?
You might be. You might
Hey,
be
see,
right.
they did it. They did it.
They did.
They did do it.
All right. Well, last piece of news: Kumamoto Prefecture-based anime Natsunagu is slated to premiere on January 6th, 2020. Each episode will be 5 minutes in length. The series hopes to bolster the the series hopes to bolster the rebuilding efforts of the area since the 2016 earthquakes. So this is another series that is hoping to bring up a specific region of Japan, much like the Saga Prefecture with the Zombieland Saga. You know, we have Numazu and Uchiro with Love Live Sunshine. There are a lot of areas that are being made popular with anime. I don't know what's going on with you guys and how you turn all blurry over there, but
Trying to get the camera.
now you're fixed.
There we go.
All right.
Dying.
That ends our news break. So on to our happy hour. So Orishiri, Cowboy Bebop's Cowboy Bebop
Bebops.
episodes 19 and 20. Not gonna lie, these are two of my favorite episodes of the whole series.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially Wild Horses. I fucking love Wild Horses.
It's a good
Yeah.
episode.
This is my favorite, one of my favorite episodes.
The ending of Wild Horse is just so cool,
Yeah.
and just like all of the like the scenes with like you get like I love space like sci-fi, and you get like a lot of that in this. Not only with like the classic ships, but you get like all the science kind of behind it, which is like what I really like. So like, oh, I'm gonna have to take 7 hours to loop back to you, but like that's how it would be.
That's how those types of sci-fi like drama.
Yeah.
It's like Armageddon.
Yeah,
Essentially.
exactly. So I really love that. And then what's the other? It's like Pierre or
Pierre
I-
LeFou.
yeah, Pierre LeFou. That's just like a
Smiles.
cool, like he's a cool villain.
Yeah.
For the one episode that we get him for. So
Spoilers.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Rolando. These are like
Please
two of
come
my
back.
favorite episodes.
Speaking of classic ships, like you said, well, you got the Columbia
Mm-hmm.
space.
I love that
spacecraft.
nod. I think it's that sort of it's getting really close to realism in Wild Horses that you're like, okay, like this could happen in like like 100 years or so. I think that's what
They
makes it
Fat
so
Albert
special.
Well,
a spaceship.
they kind
or a
of and they
shuttle.
kind of they kind of stay true to the science though, because it's like at least they don't just have like that ship taking off like normally and then going into
Just
space, because it's
lifts
like
Yeah.
no, they have like the extra thrusters on the front and it like propels it up. It's just like super cool.
Yeah, Alex, like, did he
I don't know.
build a house around the spaceship? It's like, yeah, that's the house. He just breaks it apart.
What's also cool about this episode is you get a little bit of history behind the swordfish. And is this the first time they name the swordfish in the show? They call it by its name.
First time I remember it.
Yeah, it might be the first time. I can't
Maybe
remember,
they
but
said it one time, the swordfish, like in passing, but I don't remember it.
I feel like Jet may have said it earlier when he says like,
Rex? Rex?
No, when he says Rex takes the ship, but I think he says like, oh, Spike hopped on the swordfish or something later. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Maybe he
making
did.
stuff
He
up.
didn't get he didn't know what you mean, Alec.
What do I mean?
No, I got what
Yeah.
I got what he meant. That's why I said yeah.
I think it if they said it before, it was like in passing like that, but they never were saying, "Oh, the swordfish, get the sword."
This is the swordfish.
Anyways, Alec, you are a new viewer
I am, yeah.
for Cowboy Bebop. What did you think of Wild Horses?
That was the first one
The first one.
with the virus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was probably the best episode of the whole show because Ein hit enter on the
Oh, and
keyboard.
shut off Phase
Yeah,
Phase voice comp.
Yeah. And I liked Ed in all these. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
Just Ed was hilarious. Crap, what was the she insulted Spike. It was Knucklehead or something. And she kept repeating everything.
Junkhead or something.
I don't remember.
what she
But
said.
no, I really enjoyed both of these. I think I still like was it the one where we got Faye's backstory? Is that
Last
the-
episode.
Yeah, the Valentine one. That's probably my favorite one so far. But I enjoyed both of these. The kind of the villain that we got in the second episode was really fun. They went really in depth on how he became this bad guy. And then Wild Horses was cool to see just like where the swordfish came from. I really dig the mechanic guy. He was cool, and I hope he comes back because I want to see more of him dicking around with cool ass old ships and stuff. And then watching him fat Albert a plane strapped to the ground so that they could get full thrust and just blast off was just super cool. And the music was banging the whole
Yeah.
time. Oh my god, I was like, this. It reminds me
That
of
sequence.
Chick Korea, Spain.
Yeah,
lot.
especially since that sort of electric piano, Rhodes style piano comes in and it's all like crazy movement. I put in here that the style bebop, of which the music was, is like sort of a chaotic, improvised style of music, and that's what you get with like these sort of these sequences, and like it is very like improvised and chaotic in the scenes themselves. Like everything that's happening in these flight sequences
Yeah.
is so like very, it's like a Western in the sense that like there's so many things happening, these
Yeah.
sides are all going on, everyone's improvising everything.
There's so much like
winging it.
everybody needs to adapt to the situations. and
Yeah.
it's so complementary to the music too. Everything that's happening is just like all this chaos, and then you need to adapt immediately.
Just figure it out.
Yeah, just figure it out. Like, yeah.
Or you're
Well,
gonna
what
die, or
Bebop's
some
music
shit.
reminds me of, it's like a jazzy version of like spaghetti westerns, where you have like, you know, the kind of western theme, country themes of these like spaghetti westerns, and like this, it's like western almost, but in space, and then add jazz. That's a lot of what the music reminds me of.
Yep.
Mm.
Well, one
I also just like saying spaghetti western.
spaghetti western. You know
I
why
mean,
they're
that's
called
okay.
spaghetti westerns? You want a little
Because-
film trivia here?
If you
I know
watched
it has to
Once
do
Upon a
with
Time in
like
Hollywood.
No, I do want to watch that. It doesn't have to do with like the Italians like going in and making like a bunch of these films that are like similar to that, or like making a bunch of Western films.
It's because they used to serve spaghetti in the movie while people watched
In
it.
the West.
Oh,
In the West.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
these films,
Obviously.
these films were actually made in Italy.
yeah.
Because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to produce. They were shooting a bunch of these films for cheap on the cheap in Italy.
Yeah,
Like how
if
they
you
film
watch
Called
Sure.
spaghetti westerns.
if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Tarantino, it gives you a little bit of that history. It's pretty good. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
So with Piero Le Fou, in French, that it means this maniac, sad clown, and it's actually the name of a French new wave film by Jean-Luc Godard, and the style is
Jean-Luc Picard.
no.
Yeah.
The style of the episode itself is like somewhat new wave-ish. There's like a very psychedelic aspect. There's a lot of very bizarre visuals, abstract
Animatronics.
narrative. Just like it is very like somewhat unsettling. It's not like your typical standard cut narrative. There are things that are kind of unresolved at the end.
Yeah.
Have you guys? Oh, go for it, Mark.
The whole sequence with the main villain's backstory is pretty jarring because it just happens like right in the middle of the like their action scene. Before you get to the climax, it just cuts.
Just jumps
music
there.
stops, turns black and white. It's just this very, very harsh cut. Which for a second I was just like, what just happened? Like, do we skip something? We skip some kind of transition.
You hear that weird music too.
Yeah. Yeah, you get this weird, kind of freaky psychedelic music.
Yeah, creeped me out
but
a
I love
little
it.
bit.
I think it's great.
I remember when we were watching it, I said, this music's giving me the heebie-jeebies or something like that. I was like, this is creeping me
What about the
out.
music at the end? Because they tie that music into like the sort of regular bebop
the-
ending. Yeah.
Oh, at the, yeah.
Very
I
end.
don't
Wait,
remember that.
You kind of get it like right at the beginning.
It's like a distorted- distorted, like
Oh, when
ti-
it
the
first
time is
starts to-
distorted and the
yeah.
key is distorted. It's fluctuating.
I'm going to have to go back and watch
Have you
it.
guys? I think they know the answer to this, but have you guys played Near Automata or whatever it's called?
No.
No.
This episode reminds me of a particular sequence within that game. You're basically in an abandoned theme park with like psycho crazy robots who are trying to like murder you, and it reminded me exactly like this because there's like a section of the theme park that's like normal and like there's happy music, like everyone's just like enjoying, they're like marching around having a parade and stuff, and then like you get to the other half, it's like totally run down. The music's crazy. People are trying to murder you, so it reminded me like to a T, like exactly like as it was playing, because I hadn't watched Bebop since I'd played that game, because I played it maybe 6-7 months ago or so, but man, it was like kind of like deja vu, because it's like that part of the game is exactly what I'm watching right now. Like the music was similar, everything, like the psychedelic theme. It was kind of like weird watching it after playing that, but that's all I could think.
Corrupted
That's all I could
Disneyland.
think of. Pretty much. And like I don't know if you know the like the theme behind Near. It's like basically in the future dystopian. There's like what do you like androids that like
Fight for humanity or whatever.
They fight for humanity, but then there's like these robots who are bad, but like some of them are good, and it's like there's like a whole bunch of craziness going on in that game. But man, that section reminded me like I like it was giving me, it was like a weird feeling. It was like giving me chills. I was like, this is like so weird, especially since like Nier came out so much, you know, after that. So I wonder if they took like inspiration from that at all. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
All right. Well, these aren't exactly plot relevant, but I do think they're some of my favorite episodes of the series. I'm glad you like them, Alec.
They were fun. I really enjoyed Ed's character in the first one. What was it called?
In Wild Horses.
Wild Horses, yeah.
She's,
She
like, laughing
cracked me up.
around.
Yeah, when she said, "Ed, stop moving," grabs her head and her legs just keep
Body's
moving.
still going like that.
It's just like waving. That was funny.
Good
Fei. Fei.
good old Ed.
Good
My name
old
is just
Ed.
Faye. Don't double it. Okay,
Okay,
Faye.
She like she's like egging him on, dude. You know, or egging
She
her on.
knows.
You know what you're in for. You know that that's exactly what she's gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Moving on from Cowboy Bebop and our Orishiri, let's have we have a discussion topic this week. Sort of a rant, mainly because I went to Kara Expo yesterday and had a terrible time. But there are too many cons. Not enough giving a shit. And not enough giving a shit as in people not giving a shit about these cons, and also not giving a shit as in the people organizing these cons not giving a shit, and they just want to make a quick buck. So, I pose this question to you guys. There are so many cons that are just coming out nowadays. Like, everyone and their mother can have a con now, and just kind of just throw together a venue, throw some vendors in there, and then throw some sort of main draw, and then sell tickets to it and be like, "Hey, come to this con." In fact,
No,
go ahead.
I think it's a product of our nerd culture growing. It's kind of like when you see the beer craft scene growing. We had a lot of really bad breweries pop up, or a lot of people who think, oh, I can do it, a lot of home brewing, I can do it, and then that starts to die out as the really serious people show up, the people who actually do it well, and they gain success. That's kind of how I see it. But there are a lot of them, and a lot of them suck really
Well,
bad.
there were multiple cons yesterday at the Anaheim Convention Center. Not only Kara Expo, but there was like the world's largest sneaker con. Although I honestly probably would have rather have gone to that con.
Yeah, you
gone
can see
there.
cool sneakers.
Fucking Kara Expo. I sat at lunch and this lady started talking to me and was at some sorority and fraternity advisors conference or whatever at the convention center. I don't know. What
It's
that
all the
is.
same place.
But she was like,
all there. Wow.
she was like, "What are you here for?" I'm like, Kara Expo. I'm like, I'm trying to eat. Like, don't talk to me. And she's like, "Oh, well, you're not dressed like those people over there." Points at a group of cosplayers. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not dressed like a group of cosplayers. Like, and she's just like, what do you do at this thing? I was like, I don't know, but I'm not having a great time. She's like, oh, and started asking me why. And I'm like, all right, I'm not here for therapy, okay? Like, this is just like, I'm not having a good time at this convention.
And you're not
There's nothing to
helping.
do here. Most of the stuff, there was a stamp rally at this convention, and to get the stamps, you have to post like a picture of you standing next to some yaoi boys and hashtag Kara Expo on Twitter. And it was like, I'm not gonna do this. I
Thanks.
mainly went to this expo to see Roselia, and I didn't even get to see them.
Man,
They
that
closed the
sucks.
doors to the exhibit hall at 5:30, half an hour before they go on, and security's just like, yeah, no, you can't let you in.
Dude, that sucks, man.
Nobody knew about this. Nobody knew they were going to close the doors at 5:30 because people went out to the food trucks to get dinner.
Were there a lot of other people that were like outside?
Yeah, there was a bunch of people waiting outside, couldn't get in.
That sucks.
I think we've talked about this before. It's like I don't even really enjoy going to the cons anymore unless they're like a capped event. So it's like you get BlizzCon where there's only like a certain number of people who can go. Because you get things like Dragon Con or like San Diego Comic Con or like even like some of the bigger packs. I never have fun because there's just too many people and the organization is so poor. You know, we had the whole issue a couple years ago with Anime Expo in LA.
Every year?
It's just like,
Oh
Con.
no, the fiasco of
was-
2017, that was
Yeah,
pretty
that-
bad.
It's a lot better now.
it's like a little bit better. At least they're like some of them seem to be growing or learning a little bit.
They learn at a snail's pace though.
but yeah, and it's just like, and it's hard too because it's, a lot of these people are volunteers. They're volunteering their time to try to organize these things, and then there's like a couple of people who are greedy at the top, making the money off of it.
And they don't
Yeah.
train their staff.
And nobody knows what's going on. There's no sense of communication, and it's just like more and more of that. There's very few conventions that I've gone to in recent years that I'm like, man, I would definitely go to that again. And a lot of them were like really low key a couple years ago, so it's like I'm scared to go back to them now because it's like, what have they grown into? What kind of atrocity are they now?
Yeah,
It's
I think
kind of
that's
like the
a
craft beers. It's like they get too big too fast, like what we were talking about earlier, and then they just don't know how to handle it, and everyone's
Yeah.
expecting a lot out of them, and they're just like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard to create that sort of like intimate setting where you're interacting with other people and artists, and you can buy stuff at a booth, and you can get to see a show when it grows so fast, and by
Yeah.
the next year people hear about it and want to attend.
Everyone wants to go.
Like you're gonna
and-
know,
Yeah.
or at least the production company, whoever it is, is putting it on, is gonna know that they have already sold so many tickets and they're gonna be expecting this many people, but they don't, I think, take into consideration just how much that affects the overall outcome and like experience of a con. When you grow so fast, you just can't create that sense of community that you had the previous year.
Also,
I'm
just
almost-
educating your staff.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Just
a
like
whole
That's a
different-
huge
making
thing
sure
that
they know
never
what
happens,
they
yeah.
need to do. They're just
And
never educated.
I just feel like they don't invest enough money in resources to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
things efficient too. Because at this last anime expo, I was waiting in line alone, and there was a point where they had to weave the line around employees, and they were going, "I'm a post, go around me," and I was like, seriously, you can't
Yeah.
get a cone out here and go
They-
around the orange cones. That's not hard.
They did the whole tape thing at Anime Expo, and they did the same thing here for Kara Expo, and people got hurt and had to go to the hospital at the
wow.
beginning of the con yesterday. Like someone got trampled and had to go to the ER.
Oh my
Jeez.
god.
I hope they're
Yeah.
okay.
I talked to one of my friends who went to Anime NYC a couple of weeks ago, and he said that someone like fell over and almost got trampled, but his friend like stopped everybody, like just like kind of held his arms out and like covered the guy and made sure no one trampled on them. Like like this mob mentality of just like
I
gotta
gotta
go
get
in,
inside.
gotta get inside, and
I
not
gotta get
following
in
the
before
rules
5 hours go.
is a
Yeah.
it's like this whole like Walmart Black Friday like deal, like no when there's no like strict training and way to kind
The
of
organization is
organize
subpar.
everything and make it efficient, like you
Well, and the
get
problem-
these fiascos.
Yeah, the problem too is like they artificially create like scarcity for the merchandise that they're, trying to get you to come to get. So it's like, oh, we only have 200 of these things, and that just like exacerbates all the other issues because like people are like running and pushing to try to get in line fast to get this one thing. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
Basically, the scarcity at this convention were the tickets they were handing out, the fast passes for the Bushiroad merch booth, which like went fast. I got in like the beginning of the day, and I already had a ticket for 2:30
Yeah.
at the beginning of the day. Like it was like when we went to Disney Sea and the
Yeah.
fast passes for all the rides were for like 3 p.m. Like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Like,
That's in 6
What-
hours. What are we gonna do?
like what
until-
are we're just like 8 a.m. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah,
It's ridiculous how this stuff goes.
I said it before, but I would much prefer to like Capicon have ticket sales, and miss out on going than what they are now, because at the end of the day, it's like almost like missing out anyway, because you're going to be able to do one or two things, and that's about it.
It's just
that's
not
what you get
as
now.
enjoyable for somebody who's just going to just kind of go and chill and check things out. If you go there with like a set plan and you're willing to just commit to that one
And wait
thing
in lines.
and wait
Yeah.
hours, wait a day, whatever it is,
And then not get to do it.
and then you just have a crapshoot of whether or not you get to do it. It still sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I
I
think that,
waited that whole day to see a 1 hour Roselia concert and didn't get to see it.
Fuck, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
It's
that the thing
unfortunate.
with like just putting on these events is that I was looking this up. Anime Expo has been around since '92. They really like solidified in like 2006. Because they changed companies, whoever their promotion company was, and their management, whatever. But I mean, for an anime convention to be around for that long, and it's just now being claimed as the largest anime convention, or in 2017.
Yep.
And for them to still have these problems like year after year, I think it's just indicative of how cons aren't able to adapt to these just large settings.
Yep.
I mean, like you mentioned at the start of this, is like the anime watching community and it has just grown to this massive size that it's just not able to keep up with having these having good experiences at these events anymore. I think it's
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's great for artists who want to go and sell, their own unique art, and people are willing to go out and buy it. Cosplayers are able to interact with their community. I think that's great. But then again,
Yeah.
you still have cons like the cosplay conventions that are still going to have these problems and have problems with the people who are attending, like interacting with cosplayers. I don't know. I just think that it's becoming a massive
There's
problem.
also a lot
Yeah.
of kids who go to these who may not know not to run in the middle of a crowded room towards a booth, or
Yeah.
like go touch
Or
said
basic
cosplay.
hygiene habits.
And,
But-
yeah,
But
That's a big one.
from my experience in this last year, the 2019 is basically the year that makes me not want to go to cons ever again. Is the majority of people that are doing these things are adults,
Yeah.
not
That's the sad
kids.
part.
you're not wrong.
So, come on, you're a grown ass adult. Why don't you act like one?
Yeah.
Let's not push people over and trample over them and be all shitty to one another.
There's a reason that when I go to cons, I go to Target and I buy a little travel sized Axe spray.
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes you walk around and I don't like Axe. I don't like the smell of Axe spray. But when it's that or rancid BO, that's
Yeah.
going in the air. I'm telling you.
I told
They're
Alec
like, what
about
are you
that.
spraying? Myself. I'm stinky.
I was suffocating yesterday. Someone had severe body odor and I just
gosh.
couldn't breathe.
Yep. Sounds about
It'd be
right.
really
It's
great is to
hygiene.
walk around with like a little Febreze thing that just like shut off some air. Yeah. Just stick it on your back.
Stick on your shoulder.
as you're walking around. Just crop
Why
dusting
can't-
Febreze.
Wow, this con smells great.
Why can't we go back
Except
back
it
to
gets in
the
someone's face.
the good old days when things were of the right demand, like the cons were big enough for the right amount, like the pre-Twilight days of Comic-Con. And I remember going to Anime Expo back in like 2009 or like 2010,
Yeah.
but before it became this huge thing, and the exhibit hall covered significantly less space of the LA Convention Center than it does now, and it was a lot easier to manage and get through.
Anime Expo, I think that at least in the exhibit hall, they need to limit the number of people that are in there at any given time. Because when you have 139,000 people showing up, and you have a max capacity of X amount, but you have booths and like stuff falling on the floor and people standing around and just all this crazy stuff, areas that are fenced off, that's not the max capacity anymore because you have all these blockages. But if they use this new like the IR system to just count, and at some point have security, like you slowly shut doors down so it starts funneling everyone into one, and it gets to the point, sorry, we're closed.
That is one thing that like it's good that AX at least in the last couple of years moved to the whole NFC badges. But
They need a better
only
way to get
putting
out.
3 of them in a certain location is not a good idea.
Yeah.
I can understand having 3 or 4 getting in because you need to go through security and everything, but getting out, just have a bunch of
No.
them be like, get out, leave.
Yeah, but the thing
Exit.
is like what they need to do is like have they have a bunch. They used to have last year. They had a bunch of security lanes to go through. Then they funneled it down to less. The same thing happened at BlizzCon. Like the previous year we went, there was a bunch of security lines. Although granted, they weren't really checking anything.
Yeah, that's
And then they moved
another issue
it,
for
shrunk it down to a very small amount. Like maybe like 2 or 3 like metal detectors. And they did the same thing at Anime Expo this year. It's just like they're willing to be more safe in the sense that they're increasing the amount of security they're checking for with these metal detectors, but they're not willing to invest a little bit more money to make it more efficient. Because it's like everyone talked about it being line con again at Anime Expo this year because it took forever to get into the con again. Just compared to 2018 at least.
And BlizzCon had the benefit of they shrank the security, but they opened up the overall space you could then walk around.
Yeah.
Because before you would have to leave a building, go through security, get into the next building, and then every time you wanted to pass through, you had to go through security. Whereas now they just had that whole fountain area and behind. Once
Security,
you're through, you're
yeah.
through. And everything
Yeah.
in that whole convention center area was just open to you, which was nice because you don't ever need to leave. At that
Yep.
point, unless you want to go to a restaurant, but
Well, I mean, even the food trucks were within security.
yeah. And then the hotels, the lines coming in after the big rush were really short because it's a capped con, so that's always nice. But
Line capped con.
Yeah.
Line capped con. Yeah, I think it's just there's a lot of issues with the space utilization at some of these expos too, especially when dealing with security. It's like logistically you have all this space and you have the room to create lines, or you have the room to expand security out a little bit more and have more of those, places where people can get scanned. So they're not just taking up room on the sidewalk and like there's no marked lanes. There's no
Yeah.
sense of direction for where people can go to get in for certain lines. There's nothing that is happening there that makes it seem like, oh, I'm just going to stand in line to get to security just to get in. Like, it's like, okay, well, I'm standing in a line that goes on forever. Where is this going?
You guys disconnected from the source.
When's the last thing?
Drew, do you remember what Mark said?
It was like when he was wrapping up what he was saying. It
Okay.
wasn't that much.
Stand in a line that goes forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't know where the line is going into. You're just like, I guess I'm
Yeah. I
standing
Guess
here
I just
now.
follow this. I hope it's the right line.
Yeah.
Let's walk in around the surrounding community for 4 hours.
Oh my
You can
god.
also do that.
This is 2017 Anime Expo Line Con. Drew never got to go to that convention.
No.
They fixed it the second day.
Yeah.
That's when I went.
When everyone already
couldn't
had
go
all
the
their
second
stuff.
day.
They fixed it the second day.
They did refund my money though, at
Yeah.
least. So there's that.
I
but-
hope I get refunded for Care Expo because this was absolutely ridiculous. The staff didn't even know where the screening room was. Like, I asked 4 different people, and only one person knew where the actual screening room was.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. Well, moving on. Current airing shows for fall 2019. So I separated these into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Going back with our spaghetti western theme. So, the good, My Hero Academia episode 71. We've got Sun Eater's last
Sun Eater.
stand, but not really his last stand.
Not really.
So what do you guys think about Sun Eater's whole fight? It's basically the whole episode was just his fight.
Yeah.
It was cool.
I don't know. He's a cool character. I like that we got his backstory a little bit more, so we can understand like him and Mirio's like bromance, I guess you can call it. But they just like support each other because they were both kind of lame and shitty heroes, and now they're like awesome because they worked really hard, which is how it should be. So it's
Effort.
kind of cool to see that. Yeah, putting in effort.
Putting in effort. Who
Um,
knew?
Practicing so you get better at something. But yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, like the fight is cool. He's able to kind of like I don't know, flip the other guy's powers on their heads and beat them that way. So that was pretty cool.
Alec, you're wearing the Plus Ultra hat. What do you think?
He went plus ultra. That's what I think. I thought it was a good episode.
He went full United States of Smash.
Oh my god.
Oh shit.
United States of Detroit Smash. I thought it was a cool fight. It was cool to get backstory. I didn't expect him to get dead, so I didn't think it was his last stand. I was like, no, there's no way.
Yeah, he died.
But it's kind of cool to see him
afterwards.
It's kind of cool to see him progressing, so it'll be fun to watch him fight in the future. Yeah.
All right.
I want to see Mirio fight because I think his power is so cool.
Yeah. Just jumping through everything.
Yeah.
He's just
I wonder
gonna
how
put
he would
people
put
in the
that to
ground.
good to use though.
Because can't
Yeah,
he
he could
manipulate
do it.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything he touches, I believe, or as long as is it anything he touches, or as long as it has?
Any part of his body that he can just pass through things. He just phases through anything.
Because his suit's made out of his hair, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he can. That's why his suit doesn't slip off, like his school uniform did or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just running around naked.
He's just like
what would
apologizing.
happen.
He's like, sorry, sorry.
I love those little clips when he's introducing his power. He's just like
Yeah.
caught in a wall. He's just like,
Hey, hey, you're that
wooden
you're that kid
board.
everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suck.
You would think they would get him a uniform or like like they have like the PE uniform or whatever. You would think they would get him one of those like made out of like his hair or whatever because it's just like it'd be super inconvenient just to be like I just run around naked all
just walking.
He just
And it doesn't,
he
like,
needs
make
Invisible
his-
Girl's power.
yeah.
It doesn't make his power like super overpowered. He can just now go through things without being naked.
Well, they said it before. It's like he has actually like a really shitty power, but it's like the way that he uses it because he's like practiced and done all this work that's the reason like why he's so good.
Yeah.
Because he
it's
makes
like he has to
people
hold, like
uncomfortable with his nudity.
his lung like air passes through his lungs, so he like can't breathe. He can't see. He just has to like figure out where he's gonna pop up and like use that to his advantage. It's like super cool.
Yeah.
It is really,
I like the whole dynamic of this season, and we didn't really talk about it last time. I kind of forgot, but I like the whole dynamic too behind like everyone basically saying like he should have, or everyone who knows about the All for One, basically saying like he should have been the one that got it. And based on what we've seen so far, absolutely, because he's like super charismatic. Works really hard. Not that Deku doesn't work hard, but Deku's got some like self-worth issues, I think, or he kind of reminds me of like Shinji from Evangelion. It's just like he's
Deku
like
just
kind
fucking-
of
I don't know
Power
about
up.
a direct comparison to Shinji.
but it's like similar aspect, at least in my mind.
Rising from the bottom.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Miri is
Nice.
a cool
But,
guy, man.
nice guys.
He's a great character. I think his
Yeah.
power utilization. I think that's a reason why I really enjoyed this arc. Is like they're able to really flesh out some of the characters' powers in this arc, especially when you have such elongated fights and they're just so closely kind of focused on like one character's matchup. It's cool.
Yep.
Yep.
Now we've got Red Riot coming up
Yeah.
again.
I'm
My
excited.
boy.
That was gonna be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Under the Good, Alec, we can do a little update for Hoshiai no Sora.
Yeah, it's dark.
Yeah, it's a lot
real
darker
dark.
than I thought it was gonna be.
Me too. I thought it would be a little more sports anime and a little less psycho.
Are we getting into Hanabado levels? of-
Psychological
No.
drama.
No, it's good. It's not Hanabado. I like the characters. They're just all
Yeah.
fucked up. And
No,
all
like
of
yeah,
the parents are.
this is the
fucked
basketball
the
show,
characters
right?
are very light. No,
No,
it's the soft tennis.
Oh, soft tennis. Okay.
The,
okay.
the characters are very
Baby
likable.
tennis.
The characters are very likable. They cover stuff like trans. They cover transgender stuff in an episode, like not this last episode, but the one before
One
that.
before that, yeah.
And
Like one of the characters isn't sure basically about whether they're transgender or not.
not.
And then it's kind of, they go into the whole conversation of like society just wants you to choose one way or
Yeah.
another, not be unsure about yourself, just choose and get it over with.
Yeah.
And it's,
you got shitty parenting.
You got shitty parenting.
101.
like really bad. Like that one of the
That's like
characters.
Hanabato, right?
Yeah,
That's like kind of about it. Yeah, that's so.
one of the characters. The mom is like the kid is sitting there poking at his food, like super disinterested.
He's
and she's like,
clearly fucked up in the head
right?
with how he's
and
acting.
she's like, "Oh, we got you. We can get you into
Cram
cram
school?
school." And he's like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, it's so great to see you so motivated." And he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
It's like, what are you
He's
talking
got that
about?
dead look in
And
his
they got
eyes.
the lines in his eyes. It's and this last episode, I thought
This
he
last
killed a
episode, I
little
thought
girl.
multiple this kid was gonna kill people.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions.
I still think he might like severely
Yeah.
maim somebody
I
and
The-
soon.
this show is good. I love this show.
It's really good.
It's really good. Mark, I think you would really like this show. I don't know about Drew. I
Sounds
don't
like a
I don't
weird
think this
fucking
is like
show.
the type of show that Drew likes. But
There's
Mark,
too
I think
much
you would
to
like
it.
this show.
Drew just wants harem.
Yeah.
No,
My
it's
my
not-
brother's watching this show. He said it was good. I'll have to add it. I'll have to watch
It's
it.
good. I would check it out.
I might have a little bit of
Yeah.
time next week. I'll watch it.
Oh,
Binge it.
Watch it.
good. Yeah, binge it.
I did catch
Yeah.
up in Bookworm, so I could probably do
The
it.
binge eating.
Yeah,
That's
Part
another
2.
good show this season.
that's a good show. Very good show.
All right. The bad. So let's move on to the bad. Shokugeki. Who else knew that this was going to be in here?
We're
Everyone.
gonna have a final battle where it's teams, even though it's always been teams.
What is wrong with this show?
A lot.
They just
Okay.
wanted to end. It feels like they just want to like get it over with. Like
This is-
they didn't even really talk about like the ending dish between like Ishiki and Idiot.
Yeah, they didn't.
An
Like,
idiot.
what the
They
fuck?
talked about it for like
They
a
showed,
minute.
they
and they're
showed
like, "You
Scott's dish, and he's like, all right, he's the winner.
Yeah, that was
win. You
it.
win.
He was just like, hey, well, you want to be my bitch? No, sorry, I don't
No,
want
I'm
to do that.
okay.
Oh, man, I can't be a leader because, like, I can't get anyone to be my bitch.
No one
That's
ever
basically
wants
what
to
he
be
said.
my
And then he just
bitch.
wins.
Yeah.
There's no explanation. He just
They're like,
wins.
oh, there's stuff underneath the sauce. He wins.
Nice.
Oh my god, that changed
job.
everything. It tastes like almonds or like whatever the fuck it tastes.
It tastes like walnuts and
Tastes like
raspberry.
sadness.
I
Tastes like
fucking hate
poor
this
writing.
shit. This stupid secret ingredient bullshit that has happened throughout this whole arc. Oh, there's this secret ingredient that I haven't tasted yet. You know what?
this
That definitely
rabbit-
puts it over the top.
This rabbit by itself doesn't taste that good, but all this extra shit below it. Oh man.
Secret ingredient I didn't watch him put in.
Yeah, they've been watching this whole time, them cooking.
I'm
If
just
this
waiting
were-
for. Oh my god, it's mashed potatoes! Wow,
They
Oh,
put
au
butter in
gratin.
it. No way.
Yeah.
it
This
has
isn't
cheese on it.
This isn't like Japanese Top Chef, but if this were Top Chef America, you would have Alton Brown going up there and interviewing the chefs, being like, "What are you putting into the dish?" Well, I'm doing this, and in this, like, they would have that equivalent, but the judges just have no brain. They're just off. Just like, "Oh, wait, whoa, what is this? Is this cheese? You put cheese in here?"
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
go
god!
up. Hey, what are you putting in this? I'm actually using clams, and I'm gonna cook these things in clams.
Oh,
Perfect
wow, that's
ratio.
Is
very
there
clams.
clams in here? Oh my
It's
god!
the perfect
Yeah, I told you
ratio of
that.
clams. Oh my
You
god!
you also gotta love that the final battle doesn't have a theme. It's just like gourmet experience.
Yeah, the perfect
So you
gourmet
can do
experience.
literally whatever you want.
Oh my gosh.
Here's a
I
wild
don't give a
concept for you.
shit.
Make some good food.
Make some good ass food.
We're gonna judge that shit.
and we'll eat it.
I
Really,
don't
we're
give a
just hungry
shit.
and we're tired of eating your weird ass shit. We just want normal food.
I don't give a shit about Tsukasa's backstory
No,
because
it's
he's a
garbage.
boring as fuck character.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's like
terrible.
super lame. Like I wish Rindo was like the main like
Villain.
bad person
Yeah.
or whatever because he's actually interesting. Tsukasa is just like the most boring, bland ass character, and he's just good because he's good. That's
He
like,
just wants to be good.
he
that's
just
it.
wants to be good, so he's good. Nice.
And so he hates everyone for liking his food because he doesn't think he's good.
sorry, dude.
Just gotta accept it, man.
It's like, all right, well,
Just
cool.
accept it.
Just accept it.
End this show. Just end
Yeah.
it, please. Just end it right now. All right.
Just wait.
Now, for our favorite segment, the ugly, is our Dr. Stoned segment
Dr. Stone.
with Alec.
Yeah. So, what did we get this week? I'm trying to look up the name of the thing. He has to
Dr.
make this
Stone.
crazy.
What did they do
vacuum.
this week, Alec?
Come
on.
Well, this week, they turned tungsten into tungsten filaments. And they said we have to get this over 1,000 degrees, and so they made a furnace and a lens to heat up tungsten, and they used electricity, and they got it to several thousand degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and then
I
they
just
made
want to ask
vacuum
you.
tubes.
So you said they used electricity.
Yeah.
How?
I don't know. They just sort of had a rock that the tungsten was on, and they put a coil of electricity around it, but it never touched the tungsten. And it's also a rock, so I don't
How did
really
they
know how
regulate
it's-
this electricity?
I don't. They just turned it on,
Regulators.
and it came out of a battery.
They
or
just
batteries.
grew
Regulators.
electricity,
Yeah.
dude.
And then they
Did
made
not
a whole bunch
understand how
of.
circuits work, and there are definitely a lot of things that work with this. But all right, I'm not gonna question their
No, there's nothing to question. It's correct.
Questioning
bringing back
anime
the world
logic.
with science, but not actually using science. Nice.
And then they made a bunch of manganese batteries and
Manga?
plastic. They made
Manganese?
plastic.
Manganese.
Yeah, manganese. Manganese. I don't know. That's what they called it. And then I'm trying to figure out
Manganese batteries.
this thing. Shit, where is it?
Zinc carbon batteries? Is that's what I have here?
They had to make a vacuum thing
Manganese
for
dioxide electrode.
to pull the air out of
Science
the vacuum light bulb or the vacuum tubes or whatever, and so they had to build that. Do you kind of? I can't remember the name. But it's
that-
like something in
Oh,
chemistry.
dude, is that
It's
that
the
Rick?
manga. Yeah, it's Rick. But they had to build
Rick.
that. So he gives the blueprints of that to the old dude, and he's like, I can do it. And then a day later, he made one. Like 12 hours
nice
later.
with
he
glass
just-
and stuff.
yeah, with glass and stuff. It was
nice?
just done.
I'm so glad that they're now making all of this pure ass glass.
Yeah, I'm glad
And
he's like a
electrical
master
circuits.
like glass
Yeah.
blower now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
No,
and an
instantly.
electrician.
They were
Yeah.
trying, and then he was just like
This
with
is
his fingers,
easy.
and this is how he spins the stick. He's like, he just moves his fingers. That's it. And he's like ripped as fuck, and he's just like,
Triggering
it. That's all he
craftsmen
does.
across the globe.
Jesus Christ.
ridiculous.
Just naturally.
Give me a
talented.
day, and I'll bring humanity back into the
Into the forefront.
space age.
Oh,
Let me
and then
just get my
the
cell
best
phone
part
out.
is he gave it to Chrome, the villager kid who's a science user. He was like, "You
Sure.
figure out how to heat up tungsten to several thousand degrees. I know you can
What
do
do you
it."
do,
And then
pour
they
water
high
on
fived, and then he did it. What?
Do you pour water on it?
Yeah. No, he made a lens and he tried to heat it up with the sun. And he's like, well, that doesn't work. So then he tried the fire thing, and they're like, oh man, we can't do it with that. And then they used electricity somehow. They just put it on a rock, and the rock got hot. I don't know. Don't ask me. But
Sweet.
it was
Magnets, how do
enjoyable.
they work?
Magnets. How do they work?
Magnets.
Friction.
Yeah.
That's good.
Inertia. Science words.
It wasn't
A
as
lot of
ridiculous
things-
as the previous ones where they were just like, hey, we made a water wheel, and now we have this.
And
day.
we're done.
And we're done. Yeah. Cool.
Speaking of done, I think that wraps up this episode.
Yeah, I think so.
This has been episode 128 of Anime on Draft. All of our information you can find on our WordPress, animeondraft.wordpress.com. We are found on any podcast service that isn't part of Google, because we haven't figured that out yet. But Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, you name it, you'll find it. Just search for Anime on Draft. Our Instagram is Anime on Draft Podcast. You saw Mark, I believe he was posting on social media earlier. Posting the beer on there. You'll see our beer updates. Most of us will kind of update as we go, whatever beers we're having during the week. So look for Anime on Draft Podcast on Instagram. Our YouTube is Anime on Draft. You'll usually see our VODs that come from our Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Anime on Draft. But they will go up on YouTube as well. We are normally going on around 7 or between 7 and 8 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv. And our Twitter, handled by Mark, is at Anime on Draft. So if you want to send him any questions, start a Twitter war with him, talk about Gotobun with him, get in a Twitter war, especially with the latest reveal in the manga. He will fight you.
Yeah. Or One
but
Piece.
yeah.
I tend to talk a lot.
Or One Piece, yeah. Mark is big into the One Piece wars. But any other questions you want to send to us, you can always hit us up on our email, animeondraft@gmail.com, or on our WordPress, we have a contact page that links directly to our email.
We do.
But yeah, I think that wraps up this episode. It was a pretty long one. What are you guys feeling?
Yeah,
Tired.
just a smidge.
Sleepy time.
Exhausted.
But
All right.
Good.
Yeah,
It was
good
fun.
beer.
Good beer. Great
Yeah.
beer. I highly recommend if I can show it.
Yeah,
Was it called
Brewers
again?
Bridge.
Brewers
Bridge.
Brewers Bridge.
All right. I think that about wraps everything up. And without further ado, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.